Magic Johnson did not hold back any punches as he tore down Anthony Edwards' stupid remarks. However, some pros agree with Ant-Man. Now, Anthony Edwards is known for speaking his mind, whether it be him calling out his idol, KD, in the middle of a heated playoff battle, or taunting the opposing crowd after an electrifying play, or throwing up the DX crotch chop after an and one. Ant does not hold anything back. And that is why we all love him. In the age of media-trained superstars, Ant is the one guy who is willing to say whatever and offend whoever. But sometimes it is best to keep something to yourself. And by the end of this video, you will see why several NBA legends are throwing shade at Ant and calling him out. Now, Ant has been doing plenty of interviews since his epic playoff run and gold medal win at the Olympics. Most of his answers have gotten a round of applause from others. However, when he was asked what he thought of the older generation of ballers, his reply got many NBA legends heated. And for good reason, too. Ant said, "I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it. They say it was tougher back then than it is now, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill, you know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh my god, but now everybody has skill." Now, this type of narrative has been going around for quite a while. We've all heard the joke about older players playing against plumbers and milkmen. Even JJ Redick made a similar remark, promptly irritating many older NBA players. The only difference this time was that Ant got someone like Magic Johnson angry. And we all know Magic as the cool, calm, collected type. Every time we see him, he is smiling ear to ear and giving some charming answers. However, this time, Magic made sure to let everyone know that he was extremely displeased by what Ant said.
Your response to that, Irvin Magic Johnson?
Well, you know, I don't never respond to a guy that's never won a championship. There's not nothing to really say. He didn't win a college championship. I don't know if he even won a high school championship.
Magic wasn't the only one not feeling what Ant had to say about the older generation. Pistons legend Isiah Thomas took to social media to school the younger star. He started off tame by saying, "Propaganda works, so be careful what you choose to believe," referring to the narrative about how older players weren't that skilled and didn't have great competition. It seems as if Ant has bought into that propaganda, at least according to Thomas. A few days later, he said the only skill emphasized more is the three-point shot, creating the illusion that the athlete and skills have magically evolved into another athletic species. Saying basically the rule change and style of play are tricking people into believing that the new generation of players are on a different level, when in fact, if the older generation was allowed to play as freely as the new gen, they too would look otherworldly. There is some validity to this claim, as the older generation of players played a much slower game. He even went on to criticize the bigs in today's generation, less skilled in low post offense and defensive play. Now, that is certainly true. Apart from your outliers like Wemby, Jokic, and Embiid, most big nowadays are simply there to block shots and dunk the ball. Meanwhile, back in the day, you had the legend after legend dominating from the center position. People often say that the big man position is dying. So if Ant wants to take shots at people not being skilled, maybe he needs to look at his own competition. Kevin Garnett, who was another player that chimed in, even more so than Ant, KG is known for speaking his mind. He made it a career of rattling his opponents with his relentless trash talking. However, since retirement, KG hasn't been one of those old heads who always credits the older generation and downplays the newer one. In fact, he is always giving props to the younger stars of the league. However, it seems as if Ant crossed the line because he went as far as to say that most current players couldn't hang in the league 20 years ago.
If I'm being honest, bro, I don't think anybody in this generation could have played like 20 years ago. If I'm being 100, and this is to Ant, this is to everybody in our league, Tatum, all y'all. Let me tell y'all something, bro. 20 years ago, bro, you couldn't get to a triple step back.
Nah.
You hear what I'm saying to you?
He is essentially saying that a lot of stars nowadays benefit from the rule changes. They seem more skilled than before, but it is just an illusion. If they played proper basketball, most of their stats would plummet and their accolades would go down the drain. Now, it is hard to argue with KG. He did play against both Magic Johnson and Nikola Jokic. He has seen everything and watched the league change. Some have tried to give Ant some slack. Stephen A. went on to say that Ant is simply misinformed. He hasn't done his homework and really studied the greats that have paved the way. If he had done so, he would have known that his statement was ignorant.
He's barely seen the older competition from back in the day, so he just doesn't know. Evidently, you talked about Michael Jordan. He didn't see Charles Barkley play. He didn't see Larry Bird play. He didn't see Isiah Thomas, one of the most skilled point guards this game has ever seen, a person that Michael Jordan has called the second greatest point guard in the history of basketball.
So, it sounds like Ant has some homework to do, according to Stephen A. However, not all pros are siding with the old school guys. There are a few who believe what Ant is saying, and this includes Gilbert Arenas. Agent Zero has made a name for himself in the podcasting world ever since he retired from ball. He knows how to get clicks and make headlines, so take what you're about to hear with a grain of salt.
I agree with Anthony Edwards, and we all agreed with him.
You agree?
We all did.
Don't say we, Gil.
We all did.
Who?
When we talked about Jordan, what did we always say? He was more skilled than everybody else. Did we not say that?
Arenas did raise a pretty good point in his argument when he brought up Kobe Bryant. Many people consider Kobe to be the most skilled player in basketball history. In fact, Kobe had that skill set early on in his career. And compared to many of MJ's peers, it really did look like Kobe was on a different level. A level where only MJ was his contemporary. And this was the point that Ant was making too. However, Arenas might have taken things a bit too far as he tried to defend Ant some more. He questioned how skilled players really were back then. Hopefully Magic does see this clip, as it might send him over the edge.
First of all, what Magic, like, I hate when people do this. When someone says a general question about, how many people was in NBA in the 80s? Let's say 400 people.
Probably like 350 or 35.
Okay.
I'm just.
How many were skilled?
And what
20?
Now, these types of conversations are tough to have. The reason is that the newer generation always benefits from the trials and errors of the previous generation. Along with the advancement in technology, the players nowadays simply have more information and better training, which would allow them to be even better.
Evolution happened. These guys, they have better training, they have better nutrition, and they have the advent of having saw what those guys did and studied those guys. It's hard for me to believe that the inventions today are not better than some of the inventions we had 30 years ago. That just happens.
Now that kind of proves Ant's point, doesn't it? Where Ant really went wrong was simplifying his statement too much by saying that other than MJ, the guys in that era had no skill, showed his lack of knowledge. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird are still considered top 5, top 10 caliber players. Their highlights are full of incredibly skilled plays and high basketball IQ moments. They are just the tip of the spear. There were plenty of others who were highly touted as well, such as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, whose skyhook is still impossible for others to replicate. That is why Paul Pierce felt as if Ant needed to sit down and really watch what was happening back in the day instead of making some outlandish statements.
The question to you is, when you see youngsters go, man, I didn't watch, so I don't, is it important for youngsters
Oh, it's gonna go back to what we gotta go back to Tickett's famous saying to me. You ain't watching the games, Lord. You ain't watching the games, Lord. You ain't going back watching the games, Lord.
As one of the faces of the league, it doesn't sound right to say that you don't think the older generation was that skilled. It devalues what other players have accomplished. And that is one of the reasons why Magic Johnson was so angry. He put in the time, the hard work, the blood, the sweat, the tears, all to achieve greatness. And now he has to hear a young star say that only MJ was skilled and that's it. Even KG had to keep it real when addressing one of his favorite young players in the league. Now let's not forget, KG had a long history with the Wolves and always championed Ant as one of the next faces of the league. Who knows? All of this might turn out to be a blessing for Ant. Maybe he takes the advice of these old legends and really sits down and studies the game of those who have paved the way. And in doing so, he could pick up some things to improve his own game. Even guys like Kevin Durant and Kobe Bryant relentlessly studied those who came before them and took pieces of their game here and there and then mixed them with their own style to become unstoppable. Ant could follow in the steps of his idols and do the same.